JT Realmuto is next up, the third catcher off the board in ADP. Bit of a down season for Realmuto, who still led the position with 16 steals last year. The next closest was Connor Wong with 8. No longer a standout in terms of playing time for JT Realmuto. 135 games, tied for 8th most at catcher. 540 plate appearances, ranked 7th at the position. The strikeout rate did jump to a career high 25.6%. Chris, are you worried that this is the start of the decline for JT Realmuto? He does turn 33 years old in March, or will he bounce back like he did in 2022?
I mean, that's the question. And my guess is it's the start of the decline phase, and it will likely to be a relatively subtle decline like we saw last season, where he was still very, very good. And I think the nice thing about JT Realmuto is, even if it was the start of the decline, he's still likely to be one of, if not the best 5 category contributors in a roto league at the catcher position. And so, like, even if he continues to take a step back and he only gives us 13 steals or whatever, he's still likely to be really, really valuable. And then if there is a chance that he bounces back to 2022 levels as a hitter overall, then great. There's room for profit at his price. So I think Realmuto, even if he takes another step back, is probably a decent value here. And there is room for him to improve.
I kind of feel like Realmuto is the most overrated catcher in fantasy now.
Interesting.
One, because he has begun what seems like a decline. And even just where his numbers were last year, and I'm just going to make a points league comparison now. 2.64 points per game for Realmuto last year. 2.64. That's compared to 3.01 for Rushman, 3.16 for Will Smith, 3.04 for William Contreras, 3.04 for Sean Murphy even. Mm-hmm. So well below them was Realmuto in points per game. Now, in Roto, you got the steals there, 16 of them last year, 3 years in a row with at least 13. So let's say he's about 15 steals. 15 steals they're not worth what they used to be. You know, he may be one of just, in my estimation, he's one of 2 catchers who are reasonably going to be drafted who could give you double-digit steals. Realmuto is one of just 2. I don't know that that's as much of an advantage as it used to be. You know, anybody who got you 15 steals before felt like they were making a significant contribution to your team's steal total, but not after the most prolific stolen base season we've seen since 1987. I just don't think that carries, that holds as much water anymore. And then there's a possibility he continues his decline and gets even worse than he was last year. So I'm pretty much out on Realmuto this year. I'm out probably on this whole tier of catchers, but him especially.
That being said, I agree that 15 steals in a vacuum is not as valuable as it used to be. The average, I think this was of the top. I went on the In This League podcast last week, and we talked about category targets, and I believe this was for the top 24 catchers, but it might have been for the top 12. I think it was for the top 12. They averaged 3 stolen bases last season. So, like, in a vacuum, 15 steals isn't much. When you're getting those 15 steals from a position, 16 last year, where everybody got 0 basically, or 2 or 3, it still matters. It may not matter as much, but like, you do need more steals to compete. And JT Realmuto still gives you the biggest edge at the position.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Chris, is that it's relative to the catcher position. And the fact that JTR still does give you a big advantage in that category. In a points league, I agree, Scott. I probably am not using a top 75 pick on JT Realmuto, but I think his chances of bouncing back are actually pretty good. I mean, he oddly struggled at home last year. He hit 98 with a 576 OPS. You look at his career at Citizens Bank Park, 260 batting average with an 813 OPS. We spoke about lineups we think could break out, back in January. I think the Phillies lineup is really, really good too. So I actually like the discount on JTR, and the fact that his ADP was in the 30s last year, I think we're getting a pretty good discount. So in a category or roto league, I still like the price here.
Now, the funny thing is we haven't mentioned the guy that I think we all have as the number 2 catcher.